these sessions, then we also share them on our platform. So as part of this, so today I was, as I was making these slides, of course, as I was trying to, so I landed on a slide that says, a quote. Some people attribute this to Albert Einstein, which I know most of us know. Yeah, but this is what he had to say. But some people are saying it's not him. But for courtesy, since many of them attribute it to him, but he said something and says, if you can't explain it simply, you do not understand it well enough. And it hit me. I realized, okay, that's a very interesting quote, but it is true. And it says, if you can't explain it simply, in simple terms, then you do not understand it well enough. Yeah, because the goal of education is to make sure that you are understood. Most of you doctoral students, actually, you're going to end up as, if not, most of you actually are lecturers, some of you are big people, those of you that are not, you will actually become. But the goal of science is to make sure that the community can understand it. And how can we? And one of the challenges with doctoral students or most of the scientists, those bright people, they can write their codes, they can run their experiment, but it is hard for them to explain. I've had an opportunity to teach PhDs, students, masters, undergraduate students. But one of the challenges I've seen the bright ones, they are very bright. You can give them a line of code, they score. In class, they get 90%. They are so good. But when you call them to present their work, they shiver. They cannot freely express themselves. They can't. They are good at working alone. You will give them a paper, they will give you 90%, they will get their A students. But when you call them to give a presentation, to talk about themselves, it is challenging. They will not. They will shiver, they will quake, they will just, they will talk about things that are not coordinated. And these are bright students, remember, because they have first class, they have second class upper, they are doing, and then of course, so how do this challenge? Of course, it means that when they find a panel that is mean, they will judge them wrongly because you don't know how many times, of course, for example, interviews. You've gone on interviews and you know your things in head. You are good at, but because you can't express yourself, they give it to someone that has expressed themselves perfectly. So how do we bridge this gap? That's why science communication is very important. And then, of course, as doctoral students and doctoral researchers, it is important. Now, Albert Einstein said that if you can't explain it simply, then most probably you don't understand it well enough. I've seen people, they have good work. You read it, it is excellent, but they can't present it. Not that they didn't do the work themselves, but because they do not have the audacity, they don't have the ability, or they don't know how to express themselves. So, science communication strategies as a topic that we are choosing. Last time we had a session about pitching, and then, of course, so it is, we are continuing. So, what is the role of this session? Is just to enable the doctoral researchers to become the next generation of science communicators. And then also to broaden the public reach of our science, to increase public support for funding, for scientific research, to empower doctoral researchers, to inform and influence public policy, and then also to foster rich and a vibrant discourse that really extends our work's reach and helps to strengthen our society. Now, yeah, Recently, I think those of you that are on the Doctoral Forum, that are our WhatsApp group, and in case you're here and you're not on the Doctoral Forum, uh, I will ask Mercy. Mercy, I will ask you to post the link of the forum and you put it in the chat. Yes. Now, so recently, we just after having a session about pitching, and it seems like it was interesting. And then we're like, okay, let's put up a call that invites PhD students to present their concepts, proposals, and also thesis. And they distill. So we put up a poster. We called it now a three video virtual 3MT competition. Why we put it there is to say, can the people that we have trained ably communicate their work? Because there is a concept called the 3MT, which has been publicized. Those of you that are doing your PhDs you did your masters in those well-developed nations like the US, in the UK, it's common. And those of you that are in the group, I posted a link about the 3MT sessions that was done by Stanford University. So it is a concept that helps PhD students to distill their work. You guys are doing your complex things. You're doing botany, ethnobotanical, digital, artificial intelligence. If Marcia tells you the topic she's working on, you would run mad. Too scientific, yeah. But you see, the goal of PhD is to make sure that people can understand your work. Because the people that have what you need, they don't know those complexities. There are people who, and you find, so for example, so when we put up that call and we invited people to, I think we got about 4 PhD students, and then we're like, okay, let's just try to educate some of them to understand why we need to do this. But just imagine you've been you at a conference, you have been presenting your work, or maybe you had an opportunity of a funder, let's say the NIH, or those of us in Kenya, APHRC, Science for Africa, you know, you have you have had an idea about that, and then you meet, let's say, oh, you guys know Tony Elumedu, was Nigerian, the owner of, I think, GT Bank. He's they are good, and then he meets, he's like, hello, how are you, what are you working, you're a PhD student, what are you working on? And now you just come, I am doing ethnobotany, mania using digital adherence. Well, someone may not understand, but can you wow them in those 2 minutes that you meet them, that when they go, they remember what you've talked about, the kind of work that you're doing. Now, we get that by through science communication. How do we relay our information, the kind of work that we are doing, to make sure that the people, the audience, understands what we are working on? Now, today when I was trying to make these slides, I read a shocking scenario from UNESCO. Uh, According to the 2021 science report, they reported that we have approximately 9 million full-time researchers worldwide. Now, that was 2021. But when I tried to check the latest, I couldn't get the latest, but they were not as articulate as those ones that I got. But still, they was in the same line, 9 million full-time researchers. And then, of course, most of these, they are, let me just put my pointer. Yeah. And and most of these, they're actually in Europe and Northern America, which has about 4,358 researchers per million. So it means that where there are 1 million people, in Europe and USA, there are about 4,000 researchers, full-time researchers. But when you come here in South Sub-Saharan Africa, where we all most of us come from, we have only 88 researchers per million people. Now that's a very great puzzle. So when you look at all this, you realize that of course that yes, there is as research is happening, we are not many, but how can we make our findings, how can we communicate our science to the so that it is known by the 8 billion people, yeah, over let's say 7 billion people that are not, no, 7 billion, yeah, 7 billion something that are not, that do not, that so that they can understand our research. So the goals of these are figures. So this is a figure that I just borrowed from the recent UNESCO report. It shows how researchers are distributed. So you realize that in Australia and the New Zealand, you see that they still do well. Really, they are still doing well. In North America, you see they are trying, they are really, they are not doing badly. When you go to Eastern, Southeastern Asia, you see this is what is happening. Then when you come to Northern Africa and Western Asia, still they follow Latin America and the Caribbean, they come along. Then Central and Southern Asia. Then when you come Sub-Saharan Africa, eh, you realize that we are badly off. Yeah, so that's really, you see how bad. Of course, these are the researchers. Yeah, and then of course women. Of course, women are also try, but you realize they're about 30% in research. So this is just the distribution of women. So you see that the women researchers in the world, they're about 31.4%, with Sub-Saharan Africa trying to, you know, we are not bad. We are not bad compared to others. So now all this is research, of course, showing, but how can we make um, our research findings, of course, to actually make sense for the rest of the world? So different studies have researchers have put up things, but there is one study by, of course, about that talks about the 3 A's of effective science communicators. Number one is accessibility or accessible, making sure that you convey your scientific concepts clearly to a wide range of audiences, regardless of age and background. If we gave your work, your research, think about your PhD research. If we invited, if we invited, let's say in Uganda, I'll use an example, primary or junior level. If we took you to a primary school, and the head teacher of that school asks you to explain your work to the primary students, will they understand it? Or if you go to a home of elderly people, and then you want to can they understand your work? Yeah, so you have, so the goal, you have to make sure that because as you're presenting your work, it is going to, you don't know who is in your audience, by the way. You don't know who is in your audience as they're listening through. Probably they may spark interest. So as you're trying to convey, and what we forget as scientists, we think that just because you're an expert in AI, everyone in you that you're presenting to must be AI. That's not true. You may be in a congregation where people actually, so you have to understand how can you convey your concepts very clearly to a wider range of audiences, regardless of their age or background. Can a computer scientist, can a social scientist understand what you're doing? Can an engineer, at the end of your talk, can they understand the kind of research that you're doing? If you're talking about climate change and utilizing digital health intervention. So something, you're coming up with an algorithm, you're trying to build. Some of you have scary topics. Yeah. You see those very complex topics. Yeah, but can someone at the end of your talk, can they, and what is the take home message? Can they understand it in a way that is very accurate, that is very clear? And then, of course, your research must be, of course, you have to communicate it in a way that fosters trust through transparent communication and responsible dissemination of information. When you're talking about your research, someone should be able to understand that you actually did this kind of work. And then, of course, can you try to, can someone relate with your work? Can you, recently, I had an opportunity to support with the Ministry of our Ugandan Ministry of Health. So I was doing so I was tasked to do some. So there is, in 2022, we carried out a national survey about, emergency maternal and newborn care survey. It was supported by the UNFPA. So I was part of the team. And then, of course, from that, there was another survey called Household Health Facilities Survey that was supported by the World Health Organization. And then, so there were specific parameters that the WHO or the Human Reproduction Program was interested in. So they nominated us to be part of the team to get some of the data, and then we try to come up with a manuscript, and then um, we try to um, yeah. So we were funded. We just were in Nairobi for some few days. We wrote, and then, so we had to write, they asked us to come up with uh, a policy paper so that when it is presented, can people support can it trigger a discussion so that your work can actually be extended? So we wrote, and then from that, then we were funded. We got actually more funding. I think it was just some funding to actually to do some more work. So as you're doing your research, as you're presenting your findings, can it trigger, can it inform policy? Can people that are listening to your kind of work that you're doing can it trigger a discussion? When you're doing your research, or when you're doing, of course, as you're doing your research, as you're presenting your findings, we have to make sure that people relate to your work. If does it make sense? And then, of course, of fostering trust, of course, you have to follow the transparent mechanisms. Put up your work, of course, to journals, and then also carry out a podcast. There is no one that can stop you from creating a video and upload it on a YouTube channel, and then you put it on your LinkedIn, and then people, because you don't know, as you're doing that, there is a lot that is, so what you're doing, what we are calling accountability. And then we have adaptable, whereby you can use diverse communication tools to reach audiences across media and text social media. You can do on-camera presentation, like what we talked about, the 3MT competitions. How can you communicate your work? There is a girl called Mary. I think she was at Makerere. She created a simple podcast talking about her work, and that is one way that you can actually make sure that your work is disseminated. So there is this paper by Mahar and colleagues that about a guide to science communication training for doctoral students. You can read about it. I've put a link. It was published in Nature. Yeah, so it highlights these key aspects. So this is like a framework so make sure that as you're trying to communicate your work, it fosters all these aspects. Accessible. You think about accountability, and then of course adaptability. Then still the northeastern they came up with some 10 tips for effective science communication. Number one, of course, knowing your audience. Like what we're saying, that of course, for your work to be accessible, it is important to know who is in your audience, because different groups have different expectations for speaking with you. For example, on this platform, there are people that they are not doctoral researchers. There are also doctoral researchers. But how can you will not assume that everyone knows what you're talking about. So you have to understand, you have to know your audience. If your TV station gave you an opportunity to talk about your research, if you had an opportunity to write a column in a nation's newspaper, which kind of information do you have to relay? So, for example, the general public may want to know how your research impacts their lives and their societies, and then also potential investors. They want to know whether your work will provide them with a significant return. I know most of the PhD students, they are not actually, they are self-funded, yeah, especially in Africa. Yeah, but of course, through these avenues, can you communicate your work that even can attract the investors? And then also peers may be interested in determining whether they can collaborate with you. For example, as you're disseminating your work, there are people that are maybe that are working in something in an area that is close to what you're doing. Probably they may want to collaborate with you. So you must know your audience so that you can be able to know who you're speaking to. Yeah, when you're going to a scientific conference, you have to probably understand the kind of people that you're speaking to. And then also you need to identify the goal of your communication. Do you intend to educate people about your research? Do you want to do advocacy? Do you want to raise awareness, or you want to influence policy or research, etc.? So you must understand what is the goal of your communication. And then, of course, importantly, you have to start with the most important information. Giving you an example of meeting Tony Elumelo in an elevator, what will you tell him? Do you want to start with the background? You know what, we have. No, no, no. Just go straight, begin with the most important information. Of course, that's not true, especially for PhD, our normal scientific research. Yeah, but for communicating to, let's say, the highlights, the newspaper, whatever, you have to start with what is the most important information that you want to relay. For example, when you think about your PhD work, what is that most important information? What is that most um, what do you want to relay? What at the end of this message, at the end of your presentation, what do you want the 14, the people that have attended your panel, what do you want them to go with? Yeah, at the end of it, or they will just leave confused, say, what was he talking about? So start with the most important information about your research, and then you can continue. And then, of course, importantly, avoid the jargon, because some of you have to stay away from jargons, unfamiliar words, or those slangs. Yeah, because you have to make sure that you use words that that the audience is familiar with. Yeah, don't come and say AMR. That is okay, but you have to define what AMR is. Yeah, what do you mean by AMR? It may be meaning something else, but for you, meaning antimicrobial resistance, but someone is talking about maybe that is antimalarial. You understand? So you have to understand. You avoid the acronyms, which as long don't come and say according to who. Yeah. What do you mean by who? Maybe for you call it who, but of course you can spell it out according to World Health Organization. For example, you don't come and say according to MUST. Yeah, for example, MUST it is an acronym for our university, Mbara University of Science and Technology. But there is a Malawi University of Science and Technology. There is Mongolian University. All those are so always stay away from unfamiliar words. And then also importantly, please use the visuals. As you're communicating, we are going to see you can use charts, graphs, images, because they say that a picture speaks 1,000 words. So you can't imagine that all these words that I have here, if I had brought just one image, it would have made more sense. And then, of course, you need to talk about the scientific process. So instead of focusing solely on the results, you have to be ready to explain how you got there. You will not just come and say, we developed a model. No, how did you develop a model? How did you collate the data? Where did you get this data from? What is your study population? What were the indicators? What are the variables? etc. and etc. But you have to explain it in a very simple way so that it can spark curiosity, especially about people without the scientific knowledge. And also be relatable. You can think about incorporating analogies and stories into your scientific communication. Storytelling has been recommended as a way to humanize scientific research or other technical topics. For example, there is a research that we're talking about. There is a grant that we're writing recently, and it was about peace and war something. And then we just thought of how do we relate our introduction to the war that was happening in Uganda. So we just began telling a story. So we talked about how this war, the number of people that were affected. So in the group where we were, so I was, we were a group of 8 to 8 people. And then, of course, but by the time the people that were not as technical as I am, but they left the room understanding what the research was all about. And also, I was given, of course, there was a fellowship um, that I applied for. Well, it did not come through, but I was just writing, I was talking about a story. So this story was about, how during my routine of TB as monitoring, how we're monitoring the server, how we noticed a patient that was not taking his medicine. And then we had to go home and investigate why this patient was not taking medicine. But when we made a visit to the hospital, to the family, we found this patient had been isolated alone in a house. He was not the patient was complaining that he was not given food. Of course, we had to intervene. Of course, why? Because they felt like this patient actually would spread the disease to them. Now, when I wrote about that story, then I related to say, this is a story of many TB patients because this is a stigmatized disease and we are trying to do A, B, C, and D. You see? So I brought a story to them and they were able to relate to it. So you have to understand, be relatable. There is also another story this person was talking about the motivation for their PhD. And so you need to think about what is that? Can you create a story? Storytelling is recommended because people will tend to relate with the kind of work that you're doing. So it is very important so that it leaves the audience with something to remember. People that have been able to communicate effectively, they are people that have actually told their stories. Yeah, so be sure, those of us that go to church, we enjoy most of the sermons where the pastor gives us their story. Yeah, and then they will come and say, God will help you. Jesus will help you. If he was able to help me in my story. Why? We relate to that. So people are able to relate. Can people have a relationship with your research? Can you tell a story? What is the motivation behind your research? Now, that can woo them so that say, Massa is doing something very important. So you need to think about as you're trying to communicate, but also make sure that this ties back to your key findings and your overall message. Very importantly, you need to think about the bigger picture. Yeah, think about the bigger picture especially about how your work will actually change the world. If you had an opportunity with Tony Elumelu or Elon Musk, why should they invest their billions of money in you? Yeah, show how your work will actually cause a bigger impact. And then, of course, importantly, develop an elevator pitch, what we're talking about, what the 3MT. Those of you that didn't attend the session, we have a session about this 3MT. But so here we're saying that we are calling an elevator pitch. This is, of course, this is really about people that are trying to look for their next investor. Can someone invest in your PhD? Can someone support you and so that you can advance? We don't want you to get, I know you guys are tired. Some of you are tired of your PhD. You're like, oh God, when is this thing ending? And I just, and I just start something else. Irene, you're there and your supervisors. I mean, I need to read through your work. I think I had promised your supervisor that I was going to read through your work. Trust me, next week we'll give you feedback. Some of you are tired, you're about giving up. You're like, oh no, I want this thing to end. But you're not looking ahead. Your PhD can actually be a starting point of your greater career. It can spark a great, you can be an expert and, a researcher. It can open more doors for you. When I was on an interview for that fellowship I was telling you about, it's one of those NIH Fogarty fellowships. But one of the professors asked me, is like, what did you learn from your PhD that this fellowship builds from? Yeah. So those of you, you're going to get postdoctoral opportunities, but you must build them from your research. I would not trust someone that is starting something completely different. For example, my PhD was about TB. Now, if I brought a PhD research in a study in malaria, well, in maternal health, someone would want to say, but this man, there is what we call academic butterflying. It is okay because to go to that direction, but the other person, if you stayed in TB and then you expanded it, what are the lessons that you learned from your PhD research? So, because it becomes better, say, from my PhD, I learned A, B, C, and D, and then I want to extend it like this, like that. So that is what can spark. Yeah. So so as you're developing an elevator pitch, it is very important to think about, of course, a focus statement that is short enough to pitch while you ride in an elevator with someone that can help you to quickly and effectively communicate the value of your scientific work. Unfortunately, in Africa, we don't have many elevators. Those ones that we have, they just stop at a certain level. But the whole idea is that, let's say, just imagine those of you that have gone to these countries and they are bigger elevators, and you have like 2 minutes in a, can you communicate to someone to give, say, hey, I'm going to give you 20,000 US dollars and you extend your work. So the elevator pitch offers an opportunity to focus on the bigger picture, on how relevant your work is, the goal of your research, and also why your research is exciting. So it is very important. Of course, it helps you to highlight the problem that you're trying to solve and then show why your work is relevant. So very importantly, those of you, I want to beg you, please go and just type in your browser, put what we call 3MT or 3-minute thesis. Every PhD student, you need to look at this. This was, of course, funded by the university or started by the University of Queensland, but over 1,000 universities, they actually use this, especially in the developed countries. Here it is in Africa where we don't know these things. But here it gives someone, they invite PhD students to present their work in 3 minutes. 3 minutes by talking about can in 3 minutes and the audience understand your work. Yeah, so there are some of these also. You can read some of these papers, refer to these resources, and you see what you can learn from there. But so from when you read this work by Borowiak, They highlight for a key how they have those 10 rules, but then, of course, they highlight something very important, of course, that ties the message to the ultimate goal, of course, to the audience and to the action. Yeah. For example, what is the goal of your research? What do you want to inform? Do you want to raise awareness? Do you want to correct misinformation? What do you want to communicate? And then, of course, who is your audience? Yeah. And then how will you reach to them? And then what is the message that you want to communicate to them? And then also, of course, what actions that your audience should take? Because from your work, you may want, for example, to maybe to raise awareness or maybe to get funders. That is the message. So you can read more details about this. I've provided the citation. You can read and see how you can communicate your work better. So what are the benefits, of course, of science communication? It is very, of course, they help to contribute to the society. Of course, because most of the people, why we want to communicate, it is to contribute to our society meaningfully. Yeah, and then of course, it can help students to actually expand and improve their writing and speaking or communication skills. Trust me, I don't think I am a good presenter because I've caught myself when I actually don't know how to give, especially if someone calls me to give a speech, I don't even know what to say. I just reach there and I don't know. But when you give me to teach, I try to much as possible to communicate because and this it keeps on coming because this is a practice. As you're practicing, trust me, when you start now you may not be as proficient as the senior professor, but the more you do it the more you become better. That's why, so as you communicate your research, invite people, talk to your parents, tell them, this is what I'm doing, and when they ask you questions, go and improve it, etc. and etc. And then it also, of course, it has cumulative career benefits like increased funding opportunities and also recognition from peers. And then, of course, I've been reading a paper that was trying to evaluate the impact of 3MT presentation or 3-minute thesis presentations. And they talked about that there is a significant increase in confidence among participants presenting their research by the end of these sessions. They come without knowing what to do, but as they are trained, they are mentored, they are coached, they develop confidence in presenting their work. So, effective communication tips, of course, number one, it is very important. Effective communication includes body language, and they are saying that up to 93% of communication is nonverbal. Have you ever gone on a panel and then you look at the way people look at you? Yeah, you can tell whether people are pleased or they are not pleased. You've tried to talk to someone and someone said, they have not said something, but you can tell that there is something that is not right. And also you can tell, recently I was on an interview for some journal, and then this professor asked me questions, and I was like, what are you talking about? By the end of the session, I knew that actually I had failed. Not because but not that, but the question, like I was not even answering. I was not, so that's what you know that something is not. They don't have to tell you that you have not done well. You can communicate why, because by the body language. You're so here. We are saying that the eyes communicate more than any other part of the human anatomy. Of course, it is very important for you to become an effective speaker. Number one, make sure that you stand tall, have an open posture and gestures. Yeah, you don't just come and you're talking to people and you're just holding yourself like this. No, you've seen people, they just open they are trying to, they are trying to relay. They are, I don't know whether you try to observe how people are trying when they are speaking, their hands are moving, those confident people. I think you guys have seen Barack Obama. He's an ex, I think he was very excellent. I've seen politicians, and then so of course, but also you've seen professors when they are speaking and how they begin their conversation. I've seen people that start, they enter a room And instead of starting with scientific findings, they begin with a story. They begin with a story. They begin with a cracker, something, so that you've seen audiences where people are very gloomy, and so how do you communicate to them? So it is very important, because some of them, as you look at them, you go to the panel, you're presenting to your members of your doctoral committee, and people are very tough. Yeah, but that should not be scary. You have to be confident, and then of course you have to make sure that you hold your head high, because when you're confident about your work, it is hard to be challenged. And then maintain eye contact in the room. Don't just look down. Don't look in the ceiling at the ceiling. No, just maintain the eye contact. So an ineffective speaker, he does not utilize gestures. Of course, he puts his hands in the pocket, or is trying to tackle his head. I've been on presentations, conferences, and someone holds the microphone like they are not confident. They speak at a low tone. They forget that people have spent, they have, you know, they have created their time to come and to listen to them, yet they are here. They are not speaking out. They are not confident. That's not right. So make sure their eyes are avoiding the audience. So they have a stoop posture. You have to make so, as an effective communicator, please make sure that you're confident. Keep the eyes on the audience. Try to look at people. And this is one trick that my pastor told us when we were at church. Churches, they have many people. Those of you that are Muslims, you have mosques. But he said that in the church, don't focus on the person that is giving you a gloomy face. No, because your sermon will disappear. It will disappear and you just not. But get that there is when you're preaching, say, Jesus will help you. Now say, focus on that excited one. Focus on that one, and every time, yeah. So in a congregation, you have to be smart enough to focus on the one that is interested, and focus on them. Yeah, don't focus on this one that looks angry. No, because your information will disappear. So persuasive scientific communication presentation. As I conclude, I request for more 10 minutes, please, and I will conclude. So persuasive scientific presentations, of course, they are about communicating, speaking with your face that is very open. You have to be visible. You have to speak out audibly, and then use gestures, and then, of course, manage the stage. Don't go to a place and stay in one place. You've seen teachers, our teachers, why they used to come to class, they move from in front, they go behind, they try to understand all those things. So the best retention occurs, of course, for presentations, of course, that are both vocal and visual. You have to speak up. When you go to a conference, don't speak at a low tone. You have to make sure that people are hearing you. And then, of course, yeah, so because people will hear and they also see. So research shows that the brain is good at reading, and it is good at listening, but it cannot do both reading and listening at the same time. So you realize that the people, those that hear, they are at a low continuum. Those that seeing because they want to see what is happening. But of course, when you combine seeing and recalling, can become a bit challenging. So when here, I got notes from the University of Oregon. And this is what they were trying to resolve. They were saying that to do persuasive scientific presentations, of course, it is very important to understand how the brain works. And cognitive scientists say that the mind processes information in two channels. That is through verbal, by what is heard, and visual, what is seen. How you speak can attract their attention, and also what people see, they can also track information. So here we are trying to illustrate that the mind pays attention to only a few pieces of information in each channel. So this is an ear, they are trying to listen. Of course, the brain, as they hear, the brain is processing the information. And then, of course, what they are seeing of course, they are seeing the graphs, they are seeing the pictures, of course, that is relayed to the brain. And then, of course, the brain has to select and organize and integrate what is important. That's why in all the information you cannot tell me that you've mastered everything that I've talked about, but there are a few points that you are able to pick out, and that's how the brain works. So to be effective, of course, the audience must grasp the content quickly. So you have to, number one, to use short statements, yeah, and then of course use images to increase comprehension. And then also importantly that you need to use blank spaces to enhance readership. Because so here, for example, this one is saying that water has special thermal properties. It helps control the climate on our planet. They put a visual picture, this is what you see, and it also helps to maintain our body temperature. So you see, this old man is trying to, so when you look at this, you can be able to tell, you will remember, at least you remember the picture, that you saw a picture of a mzee, of an old man trying to sweat, and of course, oh yeah, so very importantly. And then too much information and distractions can confuse and annoy your listeners. So as you're talking and you're presenting, you can be good at presenting. That's why some of you that have attended our doctoral forums, we've talked about information fatigue. People get tired, there is too much information. When you look at this slide, you see that there is very important information. I believe very important, but it is too much for the brain to comprehend. So you have to be fair to the people that are listening to information. Will they get angry? Because they may get, because you have good work, you are talking well, but the information is not actually relayed correctly. So do not force your audience to choose between listening to you or to reading your slides. So you want people to listen to you and then also read the slides that is not right. Use readable, simple font like Arial, uh, Tahoma. So some fonts work. So you need to know that some fonts work for manuscripts, but they are not for presentations. Like Times New Roman, it is good in manuscripts writing, but it may be harder for someone to read quickly. And then, of course, even the italics can be challenging. So, number one, keep your audience engaged. Don't read your slides. Very importantly, I've seen this problem. Many people, many doctoral students, they just come, even not doctoral students, but some people, they just come, they want to read the slides. No, just talk. Let the slides explain themselves. Don't talk to your slides, and also don't apologize to your slides. Don't say, I'm sorry, but no, just try to make sure that you prepare good and adequate slides. So, very importantly, the title should draw interest. So, instead of writing understanding environmentally important process at liquid surfaces, and then you put the name, then you put whatever, it is important you can say, you put the title, then you put an image that connects with your audience. Yeah. So, here, see, when you're talking about environmental important processes, you can put a image, and then of course you put your name, and like that, say, use the title slide to connect with your audience, because when people look at your slide, they can actually understand what you're doing. So very importantly, the key nuggets is that speak with an awareness of how your audience is responding. Trust me, as your audience is listening, they are judging. They say, yeah, she's presenting, but she doesn't know things. Haven't you seen presentation and someone is presenting and you're like, I think this person did not do work themselves. Yeah, someone is talking, they are disconnected, they are disoriented. Please, people can judge and they can, and that's where these researchers, the doctor of panelists, that's where they get an opportunity to squeeze you, because they say, you didn't do this thing, and then they will just call you out. They get so, but when you come and you're steady and you're doing things, of course, they will know that you did your work yourself. So use body language that is consistent with your presentational goals, and then of course maximize your vocal expressiveness. Don't speak too fast, and then you can speak slowly but deeply. Yeah, and then also you can develop content of your speech so that it will lead your audience to respond the way you would like them to. Yeah, and very importantly, you have to be comfortable with being in the spotlight. People will see you. Of course, as people, as they are listening to your work, they want to, you don't feel shy. People are there to see you. They have come to listen to you. So you do not have to feel shy. Yeah, we will feel so we are here to support you. You're an expert in your field. It is your role to educate them. When someone has a question, you have to make sure that someone, no one should leave your room when they have questions about your work. You have to labor to make sure that you make everything clear. So there is a video that we always use about confident, passionate, enthusiastic, and captivating. You can check out. This is one of the 3MT videos. You can check it out. So based on all this, we put up, of course, we put up a virtual 3MT competition, of course, um, where we invited majority of you, and you people did not sign up. I don't know why, but I think based on this, we want to make sure how can we help you communicate your work. Don't worry whether you have a thesis or you don't have results or proposal. No, you just register, because the goal is to enhance your research communication and public presentation skills. So we put this up, of course, for members to just register, and then we shall have a 1 week coaching session where to support how do you deliver a clear and impactful pitch, yeah, for your work. And this is a video, of course, because we want, of course, after coaching, we'll ask you to record a video of yourself and then upload it. And then we shall give it to members, the mentors, and say, please, these are the videos. And then what do you say? What should they improve? And then you can use that video, you can upload it on your website, you can share it on your LinkedIn, and then members can actually, you never know, someone can understand your work and maybe they can give you funding. So we have that, and we extended the deadline. So in case you feel interested and you feel you want to be part of this, please, you are welcome. You can, we will put it in the group. Mercy, I don't know if Mercy is still around. You can share with the members. You can share. You can put it on the you can also, if the link, you can join a group and then you share your work. Don't feel shy. It's about how can someone understand your PhD research that you're working on. Yeah. So um, in conclusion, now this is the quote that we started with. Albert says, if you can't explain it simply, then you do not understand it well enough. And then he also says most of the fundamental ideas of science, they're essentially simple and may, as a rule, be expressed in a language comprehensible to everyone. So the goal is to make sure how can you distill your thesis that you've been working on for 3 years, for 1 year, for 2 years. How can you put it in a way in three simple terms? Someone came to me and was like, how can I distill my work in 3 minutes? My thesis, 10,000 words in 3 minutes. That's why we do coaching, to make sure how can we help you to make sure that you understand your work, how do you present it to different audiences, and in a clear and perfect way so that you can be better. Us, we didn't get these opportunities when we were studying. We just look at these and we admire them. We say, let's share them with our brothers and sisters so that they can also be mentored and learn from there. Yes, and then so these are some of the references that I used to come up with this kind of work. You can refer to them and read them. And then this content will be uploaded on our website. These are some of the contents there. So we have had sessions about research integrity in the age of AI, writing a scoping review paper, research ethics in the age of AI. tech strength, so many. Now this session will also be uploaded. You can visit our website here, and then you can also refer to some of these recordings. So you can also check out on us about know more information about the affiliate. And then, of course, we have a social media page, WhatsApp group for what we call the forum. We have over 100 members. It's, yeah, that's where we post these opportunities. The reason why we are not many, these are in-house sessions for members that are on the forum, because, but with time, we'll try to see how we can benefit many. And then in case you want to present on this forum, we also have a link. You can join this, you can register, and you present on the forum. For example, next week, we'll have our 6th doctoral forum. We will have Jeremiah Mwenga from Namibia University of Science and Technology presenting about a culturally responsive and trust-aware framework for digital health ecosystem, a case of Zambia, and Dr. Constantine Tunguligwa from Tanzania, who is integrating his research about integrating climate intelligence into routine health information systems for climate-informed and subnational health planning, a case of Tanzania. All these are on Zoom. You can register, and then we will be able to share the link. And that marks the end of our session. We hope there is something that you've learned, something one or two. Is there any question? If there is any question, we can take it from here. Yes. Thank you so much, Bayu. Yes. Any more question? Thank you, Justin. Anyone with a question, you can unmute, and you share if there is anything. And also, when you present and someone does not ask a question, that means that it was a boring presentation. So do you guys want me to go home wondering? Eh? Yeah, so please, someone can unmute, and you. Frank, any question? I know, Frank, you have a question. You can, yeah. Okay, you can say hello.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I am so honored. Thank you very much for the session. Surely I have a lot of questions, but I might not ask now. Thank you very much for the session. It was so much informative. Thank you very much. And each and everyone that has attended, thank you very much. So Doctor has given me an opportunity to say hi, but there is a question in chat. So I think we can answer this. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, I've said hi.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Justus. Thanks, Wilson, for the session. This is interesting. It's worth doing. I try it always whenever I'm conceptualizing a study. Yeah, science com. Thank you so much, Justus. That's a very interesting. Yes. All right. So thank you so much, members. Mase, you have a question. You have any question, Mase?
Good evening. I
Good
I don't
evening.
have a question, but thank you for the insightful presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, Mase. All right, and thank you so much, Justin Thelma. Balancing between content and clarity is still my challenge.
Doctor, I
Yes,
think there is Jesse Biamatungo online. He has a question.
Jesse. Yes, Jesse. Yes, Jesse, please, you can unmute and share with us. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, doctor. Thank you very much. First of all, Mercy is lying. I don't have a question. She just wanted me to say something. Yeah, but thank you very much for the session, and it was really insightful.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Jesse. Yes. Justin, balancing between content and clarity is still my challenge. Yes, it's very important, Justin, and very importantly, people will not ask you what they will not see. So as you're trying to come up with your presentations for your defense, focus on things that you want. Of course, there are those that a must have, but you don't have to include everything. Just focus on things that you want people to know. The results that you put, make sure, of course, that they make sense so you have to only you don't have to put everything, just focus. And of course, there is a disease now of AI where we get our entire proposal and we put it in the AI. It creates slides for us. It even references the objectives. That's good, but it's not good. Just sit down, make things for yourselves. It's okay to use this, but I've seen, of course, Canva. It depends on the information that you put there. Yeah, I think our traditional one is still not bad at all. It will help you to edit because the other templates, they are not easy to edit. They just bring them in form of photos and then you don't know how to. So try to cut out as much as you can. Try to and it's very, very important. All right, thank you so much. Now lastly, one of the reasons, Justus, I think Justus, you have a question. Please, Justus, go ahead.
Not really a question, but to thank you for this bit of presentation, and that I quite often see my fellow students struggle to present what they did. Not that they don't know it, but because they have not practiced and practiced and practiced. It may not be a question of practicing, but practice it over time. Practice, repeat, try again, and sometimes from that bit of practice and practicing, you get to understand what to say, when to say it, how to say it. And every time you make a presentation and you get feedback, you go back to your slides and you're like, oh, I missed out this and people are asking for it. And then you can always include it. And so while myself, I also still struggle with making my science communication communicate to the needs of the 8 billion people globally. It's still something that through practice one can learn. But I want to emphasize that there is no master of science communication. So we are all learning and we keep improving every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justus. Thank you so much, guys. And okay. Thank you, Justus. And you guys have attended Justus's presentations. I've attended Justin's. Justin, did you know that you're a very good presenter? I attended your and everyone was like, "Wow, this is very." So that's amazing. Still, Justin is saying, "I realize panelists love AI-generated slides compared to the traditional boring one. Also, panelists seem to want you to say everything, yet not be elaborate. Your tips today will be I think there is also there is that challenge where people but I think no one will force you to do so.
I think for AI generated slides, it really depends on maybe which AI you have used. Much as I'm not really deep into AI, maybe those who are in AI know which AIs give better slide views. But I've seen some AIs when you put your slide, when you put your content and you're like, it gets out and you're like, no, then I'm smarter than it. Myself, I stopped using AI for my slides because I feel like, okay, I can use AI to get borrow images, but not for my slide. I can just borrow an image to include in my presentation, but not to prepare my presentation using AI. I still want to really go traditional. I know those who are AI gurus will say, "No, man, you are just left behind." But I feel like sometimes you may want to move ahead, but you're actually not moving ahead. Someone who has remained a bit traditional will still produce a very interesting slide for your presentation. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you. Frank is saying Claude. Claude is a good tool. Oh, nice. That's great, great. And also, you can also do I think paid versions. I think the challenge, the paid versions, if you can. Yeah, but still, I'll insist, please, if you can, just sit and create something. No one will have an issue with you. Otherwise, you'll see, bring things on the panel and then you get surprised because you used something. I've tried to give, very many times I've been quarreling with AI. It just gives you things and say, you man, you've not put my arrows. But I think, of course, these models keep getting better. They keep getting better. And so there is a time I was quarreling with, I just told the arrows, it would just bring like things. And I was like, but if you can use these tools, very good. And also Christine is saying that Google Slides, they are better. Yeah, thank you so much. So I think, guys, thank you. Thank you, guys. One of what I wanted to conclude with, one of the reasons I started this platform, actually, this doctoral forum, was for my PhD students to attend, and then, but I think some of them are not attending. So that's very, but it's good that it was an idea, and many of you. So you guys, for you, keep learning, keep attending, invite people, don't share this knowledge alone. There is a lot that is there to learn. Yeah, so thank you so much. I think we'll just stop from here. Thank you, Justin, for being here. Jesse, Marseille, Frank, thank you so much. Justus, thank you for being here. Christine, we are so happy to you. Bayu, you have been here since we started. You were the first one. You have taken the biggest blessing. Thank you so much. Julius Taremwa, Dr. Julius, we are so happy to have you here, and congratulations on you starting with your PhD. Marce, thank you so much. And surely, thank you all. So let's have a good night, and we'll share the recordings on the website. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.